The battle between two factions of the right, the neocon wing and the America First wing, just got a lot more serious. Per the New York Times, Trump has fired at least 6 members of his National Security Council.
The move came a day after right-wing activist and provocateur Laura Loomer paid a visit to the president. She reportedly urged Trump to fire certain NSC officials. A source familiar told Axios that the firings were being labelled as an anti-neocon move.
Here's President Trump last night addressing the incident.
Can I ask you about the NSC? How many staffers were let go and why? Your National Security Council, how many staffers were let go?
There were some. Always we're going to let go of people that we don't like, or people that we don't think can do the job, or people that may have loyalties to somebody else. You'll always have that.
Tell us a little bit about your meeting with Laura Loomer and Mike Waltz today, and how that came about.
So Laura Loomer is a very good patriot. She is a very strong person, and I saw her yesterday for a little while. She makes recommendations.
What did she recommend?
She recommended certain people for jobs.
Adding to the administration, not
adding.
Who did she recommend?
Firing?
Well, she'll recommend that too. But yesterday she recommended some people for jobs.
Did she have anything to do with the NSC aides who were ousted?
No, not at all.
In the past, Loomer has amplified the idea that the 9/11 attacks were a, quote, inside job. She has also a long record of making anti-Islam and anti-immigrant remarks.
On top of the NSC officials, Trump also fired National Security Agency Director General Timothy Haw, per the Washington Post. Haw's civilian deputy, Wendy Noble, was also reportedly fired. Loomer told the Washington Post that she had advocated for both of these firings. She took to X and wrote, "NSA Director Tim Haw and his deputy Wendy Noble have been disloyal to President Trump. That is why they have been fired."
Loomer got into more detail with the Post. According to her, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, handpicked Haw to lead the NSA's Cyber Command. Trump's Pentagon stripped Milley's security detail in January.
Milley has reportedly called Trump a fascist in the past. Trump also accused Milley of treason for holding phone calls with his Chinese counterpart. During that call, Milley reportedly assured his counterpart that the U.S. would not launch a nuke.
Senator Mark Warner of Virginia wrote on X, "It is astonishing that President Trump would fire the nonpartisan, experienced leader of the NSA while still failing to hold any member of his team accountable for leaking classified information on a commercial messaging app," even as he apparently takes staffing direction on national security from a discredited conspiracy theorist in the Oval Office. So I know you want to get into what is a genuinely rich seam here, which is the battle between more America First type people and more neocon or multilateral type people. But first of all, just indulge me while I make the anti-Laura Loomer case, because I think she's a particularly implausible person to be taking advice from on any kind of national security. We mentioned some of her record in the past. At one point, I was looking at old tweets of hers where she's celebrating the death of migrants crossing the Mediterranean. The 9/11 stuff caused a lot of backlash. Kamala Harris, she talked about if she's elected, the White House will be smelling of curry or something of that to that effect. She's a fundamentally disreputable person. And I think that one of the fears that people have is obviously about her being invited into the Oval Office to lend this advice. So, there we go.
Yeah, I don't disagree about your assessment of Laura Loomer. I don't view her as a very serious person. When she was flying with Trump during the campaign on Air Force One, there was a lot of backlash from conservatives, actually, right, who said, hey, Trump, this is not going to make you look good having Laura Loomer on this plane flying around with you as if she's a member of the campaign, and she was sort of summarily pushed out from that. And I do think it is probably not in Trump's best interest to have her in the White House, sure, making staffing decisions. This is a case for me of even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. These individuals were appointed by Joe Biden. Trump, during his first term, had a serious problem with members of the quote-unquote deep state, really pushing against his foreign policy decisions and actively undermining them. If these individuals were indeed found to have been basically pushing back against his more America First vision of foreign policy, if it's true that Haw was chosen by Mark Milley and that Wendy Noble was a protege of James Clapper, those are both legitimate reasons, I think, for them to be fired.
So I have some level of sympathy for that, in that I sometimes think people from the liberal or left side push back against the idea that a president has the right, particularly within his administration, for that administration to be staffed by people who support his views. Like, that doesn't seem like it should be that controversial to me. I do think there's a separate issue when it gets beyond that into the sort of civil service and so on, which is a whole other debate about political appointees. But when it comes to something like the National Security Council, yes, I think it is valid for Trump to say he wants people supportive of his worldview in those positions. Whether I would have that worldview is completely beside the point, because I wasn't elected President of the United States. So yes, he has that right. I do wonder, though, firstly, these people are, I think, fairly obscure to most of the public, and they're certainly fairly obscure to me, so I have no idea if these accusations being leveled against them are in fact true or not. And then the broader issue here, I think, is the argument, or the implicit argument, that these guys may have been involved somehow in the Signalgate matter, or that somehow there was, I don't know, some leaking or something went on there. To me, the Signalgate thing was just a fundamental act of incompetence. I haven't seen any evidence that pushes back against that interpretation of it. So I predicted, actually, that there'd be some suggestion at some point that, oh, it was all the deep state's fault. I am highly skeptical of that argument on Signalgate. That does not neutralize the argument that Trump is entitled to people who support his views.
Yeah, the Signalgate argument is not compelling to me. That was an F-up by Mike Waltz, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Hegseth, frankly, for sharing details of that strike in the chat. Even if you didn't know Jeffrey Goldberg was there, you shouldn't be communicating in that way on non-government channels.
Right.
I mean, we've agreed on that from the jump. Going back to these allegations, as you said, I have no way of verifying these as of yet. I haven't had the time to actually dig in and see how verified they are. I would imagine that if Laura Loomer went in and presented some kind of compelling evidence, then Trump was persuaded by, then that would give him the gumption to go ahead and fire these people. I don't think he's the type of person who would just take Loomer's word for it, but I could be wrong.
The Loomer dossier, I hope they make it.
They definitely got Loomered, but
yeah.
If it is true that Timothy Hall was chosen by Mark Milley, I mean, in addition to the call with China that we talked about, he was also one of the architects of the Afghanistan withdrawal policy, which was obviously a huge disaster. He's talked about things like white rage and white privilege in the military, which is leads to great disunity among ranking members of the military, men and women in uniform, where the common goal should be defending America, making sure that you're battle ready, and not getting into quibbles over who has more or less privilege when you're serving alongside people who might be of a different race or gender than you. So if that's the case, that he was chosen by Mark Milley, then see you later. I have no problem with that. And James Clapper is accused of lying to Congress over whether or not the NSA was spying on Americans. Someone who, in my opinion, has been totally discredited and has no business having any of his proteges or handpicked successors serving in the government at this point. So we have yet to see if those allegations are true. If they do turn out to be true, then I say, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have to wrap up here in a second, but I mean, you and I have different views on DEI initiatives and the importance of them. That would be a whole other conversation. In relation to Clapper, I do find it very peculiar and not very impressive on the part of the left or liberals that they have become so aligned with a kind of national security establishment, and it has become, I think, common to assume in liberal-leaning circles that the security apparatus never lies, which did not used to be the liberal position, going back to awful stuff that was done against Martin Luther King and others. So I find that peculiar, and I take your point on James Clapper.
Awesome. All right, up next, there's a battle in Congress over proxy voting. We'll discuss or debate. Stick around, find out.